Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the search warrant itself. So the mechanics for applying for either a search warrant or an arrest warrant are similar. You submit an affidavit, that affidavit is sworn under oath. You submit it to a judge or magistrate for a finding of probable cause. All right, so facts must be true to the best of the law enforcement officer's knowledge and sufficiently detailed to enable the judge or magistrate to make an independent determination of whether there is or there is not probable cause. All right, so the facts must be true. That's important. The facts must be true to the best of the law enforcement officer's knowledge. And they must be detailed, sufficiently detailed out so that judge, that magistrate who's going to sign off on it can make their own determination of whether probable cause exists or doesn't exist. All right, not the law enforcement officer's belief if there's probable cause, but the judge or magistrate has to make their own determination independent of the law enforcement officer. For a search warrant, facts must establish probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed, that the items the officer seeks constitute evidence of that offense, and the items are located at a particular place to be searched. Okay, for that search warrant, facts must establish probable cause to believe that a crime, number one, has been committed. The items the officer seeks constitute evidence of that crime. They're looking for evidence, and they are located in a particular place that needs to be searched. All right. The Fourth Amendment requires that search warrants particularly describe the place to be searched and all things to be seized. Right? So you have to be real specific on this stuff. It can't be general. No generalizations. You need to be really particular, really precise on the place to be searched and everything or one thing or multiple things that need to be seized. All right. So, as the content and form of the search warrant say, the search warrant must describe the place to be searched with sufficient particularity to allow an executing officer, all right, who is unfamiliar with the facts, to locate and identify with reasonable certainty. All right. So your search warrant must be so detailed, so particular that another person, another law enforcement officer, not yourself, who is unfamiliar with the facts, can locate and identify that evidence with reasonable certainty. So that's a mindset you need to have. If I give this to somebody else, can they find what I'm looking for? All right. Content and form of the search warrant. The premises you need to have the street address, at least the street address. If it's an apartment, unit number would be helpful. Not only helpful, it's mandatory. All right. So if it's a vehicle, you need to describe the make and license number, color, model. If you have the VIN number, that's great. If you don't have the VIN number, that's all right. But more precise and more particular you can be, the better. So street address, definitely. 8,000 Utopia Parkway. Within that, that's knowing that St. John's, that's pretty big. So that's not particular enough. But you could say 8,000 Utopia Parkway, St. Augustine Hall, second floor, office 81. Well, that's pretty particular. Okay. All right. Particular description of things to be seized. Why do you have to do this? To avoid seizing the wrong property, to prevent the police from rummaging around, and to prevent police from invading privacy to any greater extent than is necessary. All right. So particular description of things to be seized. You need to do that pretty precisely, right? Because you don't want to seize the wrong property. You don't want to invade the person's privacy to a greater extent than necessary, and to prevent, looking around, right? Going through stuff that you're not supposed to go through. All right, particular description of things to be seized. Weapons used in a robbery, that would be invalid, right? It's overly broad. Would allow a search into areas otherwise would be off limits. All right, so that's an example of that's too broad. It's not particular. Weapons used in a robbery. Well, is it a knife? Is it a gun? Is it a bazooka? Is it an axe? That's too broad, right? It's invalid. It's overly broad. And not only that, if you're looking for a knife, you can't look in places that would hold a bazooka, right? So that kind of thing. That's too broad in its description. All right, a facially valid warrant. Now this is interesting for us as law enforcement officers. A warrant that appears to contain particularized description of a place to be seized and the items to be place to be searched and the item to be seized. It is a facially valid warrant. All right, if it appears to contain particularized descriptions of the place, 8,000 Utopia Parkway, St. Augustine Hall, second floor, Office 81, seizing laptop computer, Apple. Well, that's facially valid that's a facially valid warrant, right? So even if the description turns out to be less than precise than it appears to be, the warrant is held invalid, all right? The warrant is held invalid, right? So that even it's not particularly, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't matter because evidence seized under it will not be suppressed as long as the executing officer reasonably failed to appreciate the warrant's deficiencies. Okay? So if it's a facially valid warrant, looks good, the descriptions turn out to be not what they should have been, that warrant's invalid, but it doesn't matter because evidence seized under it will not be suppressed. As long as the officer who executed the warrant failed to appreciate the warrant's deficiencies. He didn't realize it was deficient. He or she didn't realize it was deficient. A non-facially valid warrant. All right, non-facially valid warrants will give a description of the place to be searched. That's not a facially valid warrant. Or items to be seized. All right, this is never reasonable. It doesn't. It fails to demonstrate with reliability and honesty the information to another party, to that executing officer, right? If that warrant fails to give a description of the place to be searched or the items to be seized, that's not a reasonable warrant, and therefore will be not considered a facially valid warrant, right? So now the officer can't say, oh, well, it was facially valid, so you can't suppress the evidence. No, that is a non-facially valid warrant. That evidence will be suppressed. All right. Requirements for executing the warrant. Procedure for executing a search warrant is similar to the procedure for executing an arrest warrant, but there are some differences. All right. In both cases, warrants must be presented upon execution. Officer, right? So, here it is. Here's the warrant. Officers must knock and announce their presence before making a forcible entry, unless doing so would jeopardize the officer's safety or risk destruction of evidence. The differences are search warrants must be executed within a reasonable period of time after their issuance, right? Evidence will go stale. So they need to be executed within a reasonable period of time. All right, and after completing the search, the executing officer must complete the following. All right, prepare an inventory of the property seized, give the owner a copy of the inventory sheet, and return both the warrant and the inventory sheet to the judge magistrate who issued the warrant. Okay? Questions, comments, and criticisms, please feel free to reach out. I'll see you next time. Thank you.